Hey folks, I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and this is the Awful Performer. No, it's not a performer. It's the Awful MagicOne, as the name implies here. So yeah, this is the latest IM from Awful, AFUL. Spelled over here. I'm not saying awful, and it's actually a really pretty interesting IM. So unlike the other IMs that Awful's been doing, which have been multi-driver hybrid IMs, this one right here, the MagicOne, as the name kind of hints at, has got just one driver. And it's not just any one driver. It's got just one baby balanced armature driver in there, which you might be thinking to yourself, like, it's pretty common to have IMs that have only one driver, but specifically with dynamic drivers, right? There's a lot of single dynamic driver IMs out there, but there's not actually a lot of single BA IMs. And there's a good reason for that. It's because normally a single BA just does not really produce all the sound frequencies that kind of make a satisfying sound. Unless you're etymotic, and even then it's like you don't have a lot of bass. But what they've done here with the MagicOne is, I think, a bit of a technical marvel. That's, we're going to dive into exactly, well, okay, not exactly how they've done it, but I'm going to show you how they've done it, even if I don't fully understand it. But it's definitely a technical marvel. But is it enough to be a really good IM? Well, for the past, frankly, too long, I've been living with this IM, and I'm ready to let you know what I think. So let's dive in and just start talking about the basics. All right, so this is Awful's. It is, not just their lowest driver count IM, it is their cheapest IM. But the price isn't exactly cheap. It's $140, so still fairly, I would describe that as kind of like it's still in the entry level-ish area. But I don't know, $140, I think, for a single BA IM. There's not a lot of companies out there that can do that. Okay, anything else to talk about it? All right, it comes with this little carry case, little Awful puck, which is nice. It actually comes with a nice set of tips. Let's see if I can pull this off. And there's not a whole lot to see here apart from them being tips, but the quality on the silicone is nicer than average. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit gummier, and I'm actually kind of impressed with it. Now, I'm not using them because I like the way that these clear tips look, to be perfectly honest, but they are nonetheless quite good ear tips. And also the cable is quite good, although despite the fact I'm not using it. This is the stock cable. It's actually a really nice cable, and the only reason I'm not using it is because the one that was sent to me terminates in 4.4 millimeter, and if you want 4.4, that's good. I prefer the flexibility of having a 3.5 millimeter connector, so I've been using a different cable, although I think you'll have to agree that this cable actually works really well on the MagicOne. So this is a stock cable from a Moondrop Chew, if you're curious. The tips, I believe, are SpinFit CP360s, but mostly they were chosen because they're clear and they're short, which we'll get into a little bit more about that in a bit. I guess, yeah, we can just, let's see, let's continue talking about the physical stuff on this IM as I pull it up to the camera. And the earpieces on these things are actually pretty phenomenal in terms of they're just everything about them that I like in an IM. I think physically they look awesome. I think it's a really cool looking IM. Maybe the shell is, it's I think attractive, if not the best design on the outside. But what's really attractive is what's on the inside. And I'm going to show this around. This is why this IM is, frankly, I feel very comfortable calling it a technical marvel. You see all that like tubing in there in this little box right there? This is all just like acoustic chambers. These are all just like air vents that are intended to get the desired sound out of a single balanced armature. Again, typically with a single driver that itty bitty, you can't get a whole lot of especially bass, but you also can't get bass with a nice balanced treble. And again, we'll talk about the sound in a little bit, but that's definitely what they're going for here with all of this acoustic tuning. And it's friggin' awesome. I love it. I love to look at this IM. I think honestly, like unironically, like just looking at this IM and appreciating the physicality of it is a good, valid reason to be interested in buying the MagicOne. Okay, yeah, this tubing here, this box, what looks like a box, I believe that is just an acoustic chamber. There's not actually a driver in there, although it does kind of look like a balanced armature. And then back here, you've got some circuitry, which is probably resistors and capacitors, and I don't know, I don't make IMs, but that kind of stuff. But yeah, really all of the sound is coming from that little guy. I love that you can see all of it from the outside. In fact, wouldn't mind if that faceplate was gone and I could see a little bit more, but getting a little bit picky there. Other stuff to talk about this that I really like about the physical stuff is the shape. It fits my ear really, really well. It is, I would describe, a semi-custom design. You can see there's a little bit of a wing back here. And generally I would describe this is on the small side. It's not like tiny, but it's on the small side, especially as far as these semi-custom fitted IEMs go. Now, a couple of things I'll point out about it. They're a little bit, maybe not my ideal, but I don't know, they're really minor nitpicks, is that there's not like a wing on the bottom here to catch my ear very well. There's not much like an anti-tragus catch. Okay, so that impacts the stability. As well, I would say the nozzle is slightly on the long side, and that's part of why I've gone for these shorter fitting ear tips. But apart from that, like honestly, this is just a really good fitting IM, and because it's so lightweight, even despite the fact that it doesn't have, you know, the anti-tragus catch that I love, fit stability on this thing is pretty phenomenal. I will also, I guess, take this moment to mention venting. So this is a single BA IM. It is vented, as you can kind of see. This is a vent that actually outputs somewhere here in the nozzle. Oh, you can actually kind of see it there in the camera. I didn't think you'd be able to see that, but that is a vent. But this is somewhat of a slow venting IM, or that's what it seems like. So people who are sensitive to venting or like pressure buildup in your ears, I'm not very sensitive to it. But if you're sensitive to it, you might notice that this thing feels a little bit pressure buildup-y when you first insert it in your ear, but should eventually, within a couple of seconds, stabilize. But yeah, just expect that. And also I'd say because of that, sound isolation on this thing is above average. Okay, that is the physical stuff here with the, I keep wanting to call it the Performer One, but it's not the Performer One. It's the MagicOne. That's the physical stuff. Really love this IM in terms of that. Now let's talk about the sound. And like I have been typically doing, I'm going to continue doing this for now. Let's jump over to squig.link, which I've got this linked in the description if you want to check it out. I've graphed the MagicOne, the not Performer. Oh my God, I almost did it again. And this is what it looks like on my rig. And like I was kind of alluding to, like getting this frequency response out of a single BAIM is not that common. Okay, we'll just say that. And what you have here is, I would describe a mostly neutral sound signature that's got a surprising, little bit of meat on the bottom end. Now, what I will say is that it is a balanced armature still making that bottom end meat. So I think that this sounds less bassy than you might expect from a similarly graphing dynamic driver IM. And one that comes to mind like immediately is the Sony WF-1000 XM5, the Sony's newest true wireless IM. Graph's actually very, very similar here to the MagicOne. But I think that when you listen to them, you'll agree that the MagicOne comes across less bassy. Now it does have a nice full low end. It has got a little bit of a warmth in the vocals that it adds to it. But mostly this is a neutral sounding IM. I think more so actually, there is a little bit of brightness that comes across. I'm just circling it here on the graph where I think it's probably coming from, just because that's what you see in the frequency response. But it can come across maybe a little bit on the bright side, a little bit on the sparkly side. But again, it's not like a lean basslit IM like you might expect from an Etymotic single balanced armature driver. Okay. Anything else to talk about this graph? Let me just check my notes real quick before I move on. I mean, I do think that little bit of brightness here might be contributing to what I sense as a little bit of an extra bite on vocals, which frankly, I'm not mad at. I think that the vocal presentation on this thing is very present, but it's not overly forward or aggressive or anything like that. Again, I think it's because of that somewhat thick, low end. It just gives it a nice balanced sound with just a little bit of that top end sparkle on it. Not a bassy sound signature, definitely. But yeah, pretty well balanced. Okay, now to this camera again. We'll talk a little bit more about, I guess, the technical, or just kind of like my perceptual sound of this thing. So generally, I think this thing sounds quite good, but maybe not exceptional. I think the technical performance is solid, like in terms of imaging and positioning. Like it sounds pretty well like positioned. But interestingly, there's just like not a whole lot of separation between the sounds, which almost sounds like contradictory. And honestly, like in listening, it feels a little contradictory. There's not a lot of depth to the image front to back. Although again, the bass is like, it's more present there than you get on an Etymotic, but I think Etymotics kind of have a similar challenge with the front to back depth. And I do think that this does sound a little bit deeper than your, Etymotic ER4 XR, but still, take it for what it is. I will say that the sound on this thing I find to be perfectly pleasant. Nothing about it is sharp or aggressive or uncomfortable or untoward. The biggest sort of critique I could throw at it is it's just a little bit unengaging, okay? It is still a single balanced armature, and okay, I don't want to blame a single balanced armature for everything, but there's just not a lot of super engaging, okay, there's no super engaging single balanced armature IMs out there, and the MagicOne, while its frequency response is quite commendable, I would say it is not super outstanding there in terms of that engagement factor. Again, quite good, very solid. I'm happy to listen to this thing. But if you're comparing it to some of the best stuff at around 140 bucks, and that's honestly like where this thing gets a little bit hard to justify the sound is at 140 bucks. You can get some good stuff. Honestly, like the ER2 XR, the Etymotic ER2 XR, I probably like a little bit more. This might be a little bit more incisive than that, but I like that sound better, and it's cheaper. But of course it doesn't fit like this. It doesn't look like this. And that's why I think, frankly, if you're interested in the MagicOne, why you should still probably give it a chance. Okay. Why someone would be interested in this IM, and I think would be a good reason to buy it, would be 1, it looks awesome. It fits awesome. That was 2. And 3, you get to see all this really cool audio engineering on the inside. And maybe that's just part of 1, it looking awesome, but I think it is kind of like its own thing. It's really a technical marvel to behold. Is it the best sounding IM you can get for 140 bucks? I don't think so. But it's perfectly comfortable to listen to. And yeah, I don't know. That's the awful not performer one, the MagicOne. And if you're interested in checking this thing out, of course, I've got it linked in the description down below. Shout out, by the way, to Hi-Fi Go for sending in the MagicOne for review. I've got them linked as well. And yeah, while you're down there finding that link, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ding the YouTube bell, and I will catch you on the next super review. Cheers.